Hey, welcome to Creative Block. We're your hosts, VEE
and Sean, aka Lord Spew. We talk shop with other creatives in animation and comics about things like finding our artistic path and the process of making art while we doodle on magma.
We asked people on our social medias if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts. By the way, we're trying to reach 10K before January, so if you're not subscribed yet to the channel, now's your chance to click that follow. We're so close. Okay.
Today we have with us Sean Keeton. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, double Sean's.
Double Sean's. This is going to get really confusing really quick. Do we want to say Sean K or Sean G? Do we want to say Keat Dog and
I think
Blazin?
We should all change our name to Sean's. Just okay. 3 Sean's.
I'm Sean too.
This is much easier. I know that when you were younger, you had people call you V instead of pronouncing your full name, but I'm going to need you to change it again so we can just all be Sean's. It's easier.
I've always wanted to be a Sean. I think this is like finally a life goal achieved, achievement unlocked. I am very excited.
And then when we ask Sean about things that he's done in his career, we can say, so what have us done in our career? And we'll just be like a collective, like a hive mind of Sean's, I guess, huh?
All right.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
This bit is going too far.
Stop calling out my long bits.
Sean, before we started the podcast, actually, we were talking about how we like, and maybe this is a little bit like going too like deep into the subject right off the bat, but like we were talking about how things sometimes don't pan out in an art career, and you brought up kind of like your like one of the first studios you worked at that was like quite interesting.
Yeah, I worked at an animation studio just outside of New York City, right out of college, called Animagic, and it was so I got the job because I had spilled a cup of coffee on my partner at the time's laptop and destroyed her hard drive. So I was trying to get that fixed at a hard drive repair shop, and in the same building was this animation studio, and gave him my reel. And then got a call, I think a couple weeks later, maybe a month or two, probably like a month later, and basically he said, we were supposed to do a pharmaceutical commercial for an allergy pill, and we did not do it. And it's due in like, I think it was 24 hours, maybe it was 48. What? Can you do a 30-second spot for us?
Classic.
So I agreed and just stayed up, didn't sleep until this thing was done, sent it in. It was, probably really mediocre, but they accepted it.
Your first animation job had all of the like the aura and the air of like when a college kid hires someone at the last minute to write their essay.
Oh yeah. And I just was like, I guess this is jobs, I'll take it. I did the thing, and then they hired me on full time because I did this insane thing for them. And then there was like 4 German shepherds in this place that all would fight each other. Like one ripped the stomach out of the like one of the other dogs, and then ripped my boss's ear in half.
What? That's crazy.
And the owner of the place told him that if he went to the ER, like she just was like screaming like you can't do that because they'll put the dog down. So he just like taped his ear together and like tried to deal. Owner was like an ex-bodybuilding woman. She used to walk around naked, and she like tried to shove my head between her boobs at one point, and
what?
And then
you're gonna need to submit an invoice for that motorboat.
My boss sprayed her with Windex to get her to stop, and said, "You can't do this to him. The last one left because of this, and I need him." And then they just sprayed each other with Windex for like 10 minutes.
At least they're clean. At least they were clean.
The thing that's crazy about this is that I feel like spraying someone with water is like an internet meme. I would never think that in real life ever people would actually do that. That's insane. Wait, so how long did you end up being in that studio?
I think I was there for 3 years, and that was an animation studio, not a game studio. And then was visiting San Francisco, gonna go visit my grandma in San Francisco, and told my friend that I was gonna look at studios while I was there because my studio was not where I wanted to be. And Got a job at Three Rings out there, which is an indie game studio. And that kind of kicked off my career properly.
Do you, do you feel like spending these 3 years at that insane studio helped you get good portfolio work? Or like what would you say, like with all the like with all the insanity, was there anything that you took away from working there for 3 years?
There was one like bumper that I did that was really well animated that I was really proud of that wasn't my portfolio. Most of it was so hand to mouth that we couldn't really make it as good as I could just do in my free time for portfolio stuff.
Like, hey, we forgot about this project and it's due tomorrow.
Right.
Like, you don't get many portfolio pieces out of that kind of schedule.
But I think it was mostly just it's a lot easier to jump to a new position when you're jumping from a gig to another gig. So it was just honestly, I think it was mostly the mental thinking of myself as a professional artist as opposed to an aspiring professional artist that was the most useful thing I got out of that.
I think that's so huge what you just said. I feel like sometimes even I think working at a studio that is just like that doesn't have like an aura or that doesn't have like a big reputation is just like super valuable for what you just said. Like just finally feeling like I'm a professional and make money. That's just like I'm legit, you know? That's so funny. Did you always wanna wait, so what did you go to college for?
Animation.
Game? Animation, okay.
Yeah, just a film animation. Was either going to go into cartoons or games. I wasn't clear at the time. Initially did some animation stuff, did some animated shorts, had a short on Nickelodeon with Frederator, and then pitched a cartoon series to them that they asked me to pitch them. But that one, they actually thought was really funny, but I was straight out of college pitching a cartoon, so I kind of just figured that'll keep happening. And they had a bunch of changes they wanted to make that kind of inverted the whole premise. And I had been like a punk growing up, and so I just had this like, I don't wanna, and just didn't make the changes. And that was, that was the one time I got asked to develop a cartoon for somebody. So that's probably my number one like regret career-wise is that I didn't just make those changes and make the cartoon they wanted instead of the one that was like not really age appropriate that I was trying to like get them to do.
Is there a way for you to go to them, prove that you're not a punk anymore? Like like you'd step on your Black Flag shirt and then
sure.
Please.
My one that I bought directly from Greg Ginn.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, you got to step on that shirt and renounce it. Hand on the Bible, and then say I'll make those changes. Because I do think that studios need people that can like work through like bodybuilder women, like harassing them and stuff. I feel like actually that's a test, that's a gauntlet that a lot of people would fail.
Honestly, yeah, dude, I don't know. Like that's so crazy. I mean, nerves of steel. You're just kind of like not phased by the notes or the harassment.
Honestly, like in retrospect, that's insane, and I should have left immediately. But I was like, 21 or whatever, and I would just like, I guess this is how jobs go. Like, I don't know.
I mean, at least she had a weakness, I guess, right? At least the Windex was a surefire.
Right.
In most situations, there's not like an easy situation out of it, but her Achilles heel was immediately kind of discovered. And listen, for everyone listening, I don't mean to make light of this. Is a clear and cut case of some sexual harassment at work.
Yes.
And it is not okay, if you are encountering a muscular woman who keeps trying to motivate you at work, go to HR, leave, get yourself out of that situation. That is not the right way to be treated. Or spray her with Windex and then follow suit with the other things.
So you said that you pitched a cartoon to, like, you made a short with Frederator. How did that come about? And can you kind of like, even though you said you didn't do the notes, I want to know a little bit more about how that process went when they wanted to kind of like take it into a show.
Yeah, so I the short was actually like had been my thesis for college.
Oh,
And then I submitted it to Frederator, and they picked it up and aired it on Nickelodeon for a while. As part of Cartoon. Oh yeah, Cartoon, whatever. Channel Frederator. I forget what it was called at the time.
Cartoon Hangover or Cartoon something?
I think Cartoon.
Nice.
Cartoon Hangover, I think, is Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Cartoons is Cartoon Network. It's this thing where,
Okay.
it's this thing where
It was on Nickelodeon, so it might have been Cartoon Hangover then.
it's interesting that wait, so did you finish your thesis film in college and they just aired it as is?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's awesome. That's so crazy.
Wait, can you say the name? Is it still available?
It was called The
online
Monster Within. It's it is available, although here's the thing, I tried to hide it for forever because it's 3D animation. And it's 3D animation that looks super old, except now it's been pointed out to me recently that because it's so old, it looks kind of Skibbity Toilet in a fun way, as opposed to like when it was like a couple years old, it just felt like a little out of date. Now it's like,
now it's in.
Get V started on Skibbity Toilet. We can't do another half an hour on Skibbity Toilet. V keeps trying to derail us every week. A new Skibbity clip.
Listen, usually Sean is the one who does the funny bits. Give me my Skibbity Toilet bit. That's all I'm asking.
All right, everybody, vote in the comments. Vote in the comments if you want more Skibbity Toilet. I'll respect the audience's wishes. Tell us in the comments what you want more of. If you want a Skibbity episode, we can try to get the creator of Skibbity Toilet on to finally put this to rest. But right now we're interviewing our friend Sean Keeton.
Do you still do 3D, or are you just like 100% 2D now?
98% 2D.
That's awesome.
Occasionally do 3D stuff, but it's not my preference. I usually just hire somebody to do that stuff.
When do you ever need to use 3D? That's interesting, because I would have thought like as an art, well, I guess as an art director. Well, tell us a little bit about what your job is like on the day-to-day.
Yeah, it shifts, but right now it's primarily managing other artists. We work with a lot of contract artists. Currently hiring some animators to do some 2D frame-by-frame animation for us. I'm actually art directing like 2 games and spooling up another one right now.
Whoa.
Skullgirls, and then there's one I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say about it, but coming out early next year. And then a third project in the works that I definitely can't talk about. But it's like a AAA kind of thing.
I just want to say that there were some people in our Discord server at one point that were talking about Skullgirls, and I was like, oh, I know someone who is an art director for Skullgirls. Maybe we could get him on the pod someday. They said this person. I said no, it's not that person. They said then no, you don't. And so if you're listening to this, yes, I do. I friggin' do. I do know. Sean Keeton works on Skullgirls too, and is an art director for Skullgirls. Okay.
The person there, I'm not going to use their name because they're not currently working on it, and they don't really want me to bring them into it. But,
sure, all good.
But that artist, the other artist that they're surely talking about, which is the art director that was on it before me, is a phenomenal artist, really wonderful artist.
What is it like coming onto a project that already had like an identity and then taking the mental, I guess? Can you describe like that process?
Sure. Let me go back and finish answering the previous question.
Oh, yes.
So a lot of it's providing resources and paint overs and notes and feedback to the various artists that work on it, and keeping them sort of moving and making sure nobody's blocked and stuff. So it's a lot of, in the beginning, I was making more assets myself, and then over time, it's more and more just writing notes and paint overs and stuff for people.
So you're not just on one game, you're like kind of across the board. You kind of like have your hand in everything.
Everything that the studio does. Yeah.
Well, it's a lot.
Yep. It's increasingly a lot. What was the other question?
It was like, how is it like coming onto a project that, somebody else started and then you're keeping that style? Like, what are your tips to the way you approach it? Your experience?
So it was in a state of like, it was like preserved in amber basically. When we came in, the development had stopped on Skullgirls. And I was brought on as part of the relaunching Skullgirls. So we made a mobile version of the game, which gave us enough money that we could then create a bunch of new characters and stages for the console version of the game. Kicked life back into it, and it's back in tournaments and stuff. And so, I'm very, very proud of helping to have done that. But it definitely was I think I remember when the Indiegogo for Skullgirls really happened. I was working at, I think it was Sega at the time in San Francisco, and was just really loved it because I loved Darkstalkers and Marvel vs. Capcom and all the sort of reference points. And so it was very much a feeling of I want to be able to add to this and not just sort of, but that what's great about it is great. And I didn't want to mess with, the core of the thing, which is mostly, I think, really cool characters, really bizarre character designs. It's really exaggerated, sort of weird character designs, and then just beautiful frame by frame animation was sort of like the main things I wanted to preserve.
What would you say, what part of the process would you say most goes hand in hand with like your natural art style? Because I feel like you yourself have a very strong independent art style of your own, and I'm wondering, like, is there any part of the process where you get kind of like some fulfillment there in like oh, okay, like this is kind of like what I already do?
I mean, on that end, it's mostly that I'm already obsessed with, monsters and skeletons, and cool. I draw characters with skulls in their pupils. There's, Marie in the game has a skull, there's a lot of overlap in terms of vibe. The actual style is very different from my personal style, and I prefer that because I don't think I would have any energy to do my own work if my style was the same style.
That makes sense.
I think I'd burn out pretty quick. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's really interesting, actually. That's a really interesting take, because I don't know if we've really talked about that on the podcast before, about how it's nice to have a little bit of distance between the work that you're doing professionally and what you're doing on the side.
Yeah.
The other games that you are directing, are you consciously trying to also avoid your personal style for these?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you do that? Because I feel like a lot of artists, we just kind of tend to resort to our like bag of tricks, right?
Yeah. So for one of them, what I did largely was really lean on a concept artist that I really liked. Mm-hmm. Hired a concept artist that has not done video games before and is more in the comic world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And had him do his crazy weird stuff, and then it's a matter of converting that into stuff that will work for video games, because one of my main goals for that was to create a game that doesn't look like anything you would expect. That when you first see it, because that game's an indie game, it's important for, like, when you see on the Steam store, for it to stand out.
Yes.
And I think the worst thing an indie studio can do is create like a non-AAA version of a AAA style, and it just sort of feels like a, less budget heavy version of something, some Call of Duty shit or whatever.
So as somebody who's worked in animation and also has worked in games, what are some like defining differences in like the studios? Because I mean, you've also worked in an animation studio where you had to hand in something the next day, so you're, I'm sure that deadlines in your whole life have been crazy.
Yeah, I mean, one of the main differences is that video games, it's not uncommon for me to be at a studio for like 8 years at a time. That does not happen in animation. Not really. Maybe if you're in The Simpsons or something, but most studios do not do that. So there's a lot more. That also means that there's more of a sense of like, we're not trying to burn these people out, at least at the indie studios. I think, there's been lawsuits against Activision and various studios for just, working their people to death. So I don't want to say that across the board, but at least the ones I've been at, I've been lucky that there's the hours can get nuts, but it's like we try not to do it as a regular thing. And then it's also just like, there's a lot more technical consideration, I think, in video game animation and art, in that there's all this, like, if you remove one frame, it changes gameplay. It doesn't just change the feel of the animation.
That's so crazy. Yeah. I that makes so much sense, especially for a fighting game. So as an art director, what is that process like? Do they tell you we need that move to be X amount of frames? Does it come from the coders? Like, what's that discussion like?
No, that's mostly from the gameplay designers that were there. So there's a delivery of animation rough frames that is like what we think makes the animation look really good, and then animation designer will basically like we need to remove this one frame. We need to hold this frame for 2 more. We need a smear in here. We need, and so then there's this sort of like, we basically put it in the game, play it, figure out where things, need to be added to or removed. And then from there, we'll sort of tie it down and then clean it up once the roughs are working. But we basically get the game going with like pencil roughs before we clean anything up.
Oh, that's awesome. And it doesn't change the hitbox, like when you clean it up, or do you have to be careful?
No. The hitbox is set separately from the frames themselves.
Okay.
We sort of draw boxes, so a bunch of boxes over everything.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
cool.
like I was curious about like because in a fighting game, like I feel like there's a certain like what kind of animation frame. I'm hesitant to say limitations because I feel like it's working hand in hand with gameplay experience, but like you have to, I'm assuming that if you're doing a move to respond to another move, then you want that animation to be quick and feel responsive rather than to have a long animation thing that takes a while to reset for the next move.
Everything has to go back to
out?
idle. Everything has to go back to idle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of making sure you can reset, and then also you can't do near as much as anticipation a lot of times as you would want to normally when animating. I mean, that goes for a platformer too, right? Like if Mario like crouches down with a big anticipation before he jumps, it's just it's gonna feel terrible. When you hit the button, the thing needs to start happening like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of times we'll just kill frames from the beginning of the thing to make it feel real responsive. And then you can lean in more into like follow through and stuff, but you also need to be able to cancel out of moves at any point and go into something else. So in a 3D game, you would potentially do some interpolation stuff between moves, which makes it a little easier. You can have these like graphs that sort of like shoot off from one animation to the other in different ways, and rely on the computer to interpolate a little bit. But this is frame by frame, so you can't do any of that.
Man,
It's interesting because when you went to college for animation, you didn't have any classes on video, like the communication between like gameplay and animation, right? It was purely animation.
Yeah.
had you had experience before this doing game stuff or game animation like on your own or whatever?
Yes. So I made a game in 4th grade with my friend. That went horribly because we were trying to program ourselves and we were kids.
4th grade. Yeah.
So we got art in, and you could run around and you could jump, but we never figured out how to make it so that when you jump, you go back down. So you would just jump up off the screen. That's it.
That's hilarious.
But then I made my own video games in college, like during the summers. I would just like make games.
What was your engine of choice?
I just coded in C because that's all I had.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, yeah, because at the time there wasn't. Oh, shoot, what's the one that like had a controversy recently? Unity. Yeah.
Oh, sure. That did not exist yet. Yeah. I use that a lot now, though.
Because I know a lot of people got their start like making, I don't know, like Flash games on Newgrounds or like things like that. I was curious if you had a similar starting point or if it was completely separate.
Yeah, I mean, I just did them myself, and
Cool.
didn't really do anything with them. But yeah.
What's your favorite kind of game to make? Or do you have like a favorite genre of game?
I don't. It's more that I like games that look really weird and have very specific, distinct styles. I mean, there's styles. There's games. I wouldn't want to do a sports game. I wouldn't want to do a racing game. Definitely don't want to do a casino game. So there's like ones I wouldn't want to do. But I mean, right now I'm doing like a brawler platformer and a fighting game, and maybe spooling up a second fighting game. I mean, so.
What if we do like a Rocket League in a casino? Like it's like all of them combined. What are you?
It's like a casino in a spaceship in a racing game.
And
it's like all of them.
Yeah, and instead of cars, it's muscular women. Has your interest peaked yet or not?
Top 5 weird looking game that you love, Sean.
Me?
Oh.
I keep forgetting we're both Sean. This is so difficult. I am so sorry. I did not mean to interject. Please, there's no reason why I should answer that question. Top 5 game weird looking.
I mean, Hollow Knight's pretty cool. Like Hollow Knight.
Mm-hmm.
I always space when people ask me favorite anything.
Or you can just maybe off the top of your head. Don't say like don't think
Okay.
about it like an
Okay.
all-time favorite, but like maybe your current obsession, like stylish games.
Give a little nod to something.
I'm forgetting on the name. There's like a game that's like, it's basically like if A24 made a game. I haven't played it yet, but it looks fucking crazy. What is this thing? Oh man.
Describe the vibe.
It's like a horror, insane horror. Like I think there's like nuns involved.
Inscription? No.
Is it Indica? I think it's Indica. Yeah, it's Indica. This thing looks nuts. The screenshots don't look that crazy, but if you watch the trailer, it's just insane. And then also, like Night in the Woods looks amazing. I like really cartoony, like Cuphead kind of stuff.
Have you seen that? There's like a I forgot the name of it, but there's a first-person shooter that came out that looks like it's all like rubber hose-ish. But it's 3D. That was so cool. I was just like losing my mind when I saw that. Do you play any RPG Maker games? Would you ever make like an RPG Maker type of game?
I did start to make one back in high school when I was making those games, but I didn't finish that one. I've never got that far into anyone else's RPG Maker. I get more obsessed with making things than consuming things in general. Which is why I take everything that I've ever loved and start making it and then ruin it for enjoying it outside of that. Comics, cartoons, video games. I'll figure out how to do music at some point and ruin that too.
Is one of your goals to make a game so good that you actually like playing it after you finish it?
yeah. Or just to eliminate all joy from my life by everything.
That's a crazy goal. I don't know about that goal.
So you worked in an animation studio, and then you were like, okay, I want to move to San Francisco. How did you decide to go into games, or was it just the opportunity just presented itself? Like, what was that process like for you to?
I mean, games. So I had the original plan pre-animation was to do games, hence me like making them in high school. And then when I was in animation school, I became very open to the idea of doing animation instead. And then so I was kind of just keeping an eye out for both things at the time and just trying to see which one would be sort of more fun, and ended up talking to the studio, Three Rings, that was making stuff that seemed pretty weird and fun at the time. So we did a game, Spiral Knights, that was like a Zelda MMO, basically. It was the first, along with Team Fortress 2 and one other game, it was the first free-to-play game on Steam.
Wow. Damn,
but that was fun.
You're kind of like an OG, huh?
Yeah, I've been doing this for a while.
And so you art direct. On top of that, you also do gallery work. What was that process like for you? Were you just kind of like first painting and then reached out to galleries, or was it like a goal in your life that you're like, I want to see my art up on the walls? Like, how did you get there?
When I was working at game studios in San Francisco, the studio was right next to this gallery called 111 Minna, and we would all go hang out there, and it had, weird, like, lowbrow pop surrealist paintings and stuff. So, fine art, but it's inspired by cartoons and video games and stuff like that.
Fine arts, but fun.
Yeah.
Finally.
Really into that stuff. And I was making comics in my free time at the time, but just started getting more and more into that style of painting, and wasn't doing it up there. But then when I moved to LA for the job that I'm currently at, this is kind of where this in like Tokyo is kind of where like that kind of fine art started. LA and Tokyo. So I was got really immersed in it and was just doing illustrations for fun in my free time. And the gallery asked me to be in a group show. And so I went,
cool.
oh shit, I got to learn how to paint this stuff like with like physical paint. And that actually ended up, part of why my painting style is so weird is that it is me figuring out how to do what I was doing digitally with traditional media.
Yeah.
And so that's like, there's all my paint strokes are like straight up and down, which is like a nightmare to do physically. But because I'd already established the style I liked, I had to figure that out. And it's helped me a lot because it's a very specific thing that nobody else does.
Have you developed a certain muscle on your body specifically that a lot of other fine artists haven't? Like, are your shoulders really strong from going up and down so much? Like, it's like you only did one part of the Mr. Miyagi training and then you stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just right under my armpit here. It's ripped like nobody's business, but only on my right arm.
Oh, that's so funny though. Did you feel like people know of your, no, they must know of your style because of like your design choices, but do you also feel like people recognize your pieces because of these very specific brushstrokes? Is that also part of
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. It's a combo of the two things. And I have a very limited specific palette that that helps a lot with that. But yeah, so basically all the fine art gallery stuff just happened because galleries keep asking me to do shows. I have a show up right now at Thinkspace Gallery, which is like one of my favorite galleries in the world, a solo show up. So it's just been sort of a cascade. You do one show and then somebody asks you to do another show and you keep showing. I show a lot with a Giant Robot too, which is a place I was a fan of long before showing with him.
That's so cool because I remember being a huge fan of Giant Robot as well when I was in college. Like I would buy like the vinyl toys that they would kind of drop every now and then. How is it like working for like a brand that you really like look up to in that way?
So like when I first started doing my own stuff very seriously, I told myself that like if one person resonated with it, then it was a success. Because I was doing it all the personal stuff I do for like emotional reasons first, and then like financial reasons are kind of get to be an afterthought because I art direct video games, so I don't have to worry about that as much, and then to have galleries and things that I really respect, and then like some of my favorite artists growing up like my work and stuff, and all of that's just been like overwhelming on a level that's been like it's kind of more than I had thought was possible. So it's just been really, really overwhelming, but in a good, it's just been great.
Yeah.
That's cool to hear that you're like first your emotions first, and then like I think that is so like pure, like so good to hear. I feel like we don't get to hear that a lot. Just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, it is a luxury of doing that stuff outside of the industry. You cannot do that in completely inside of the industry because there's a product and that there's a fan base and they have to like it, or the thing stops being made, but nobody can stop me from making paintings even if they hate them. So
what would you do art of if skulls didn't exist?
I paint a lot of eyeballs.
You'd probably just work at a studio called Girls. So eyeballs are your fallback?
Yeah, eyeballs.
That's sick. Because there's nowhere to house them. We got a bunch of loose orbs flying around.
Yep.
Damn. One of the ways that we've crossed paths a lot, and I've seen you at like drink and draws a lot. But one of my first like longer term meet sessions with you, I guess, was I shared a table with you tabling at Designer Con. We shared a little booth area. Ari, Bean Things, and you, and that was my first convention tabling experience. I was curious kind of like what your relationship with tabling, conventions, like how often do you do that? How important is that to you? Like sort of, how did you get started? That kind of stuff.
Started doing, the first one I did was the Alternative Press Expo up in San Francisco when I was living up there. And that's like a indie comic-y kind of thing. And that's when I was doing a comic I used to do called Panic Attack. And started making shirts and stuff as part of that. And then mostly I do Designer Con. I've done I do like a bunch of like pop-ups that my friends put on and stuff too. But it's mostly it's fun to meet the people that like the thing you make. Yeah. You get to meet them a bit at galleries, but not on the same level of not everybody goes to galleries, and more people go to conventions. So it's really fun to sort of meet them. And then also, I find it weirdly gratifying to have people put my art on their bodies, tattoos or clothing or whatever. So
That's so true. When somebody, I don't know what it was like for you. I like I used to do a lot of inks, and I didn't realize, but when you do like very like Inktober type of drawings do really well for tattoos. And
oh yeah,
the first time somebody reached out to me to get a tattoo from my drawing, I was like, "Are you sure you really want to do that?" What was your thought?
Tried to talk him out of it.
Yeah, I'm like, "That's gonna be on your body forever, dude."
Explaining to them what tattoos are.
No, but I don't know. What was that like for you? The first time someone was like, "Can I get this tattooed?"
most of the tattoos people get, they do not ask. And so the first several, oh no, actually no, I do have a story about the first tattoo because that person did ask if it was a friend of mine. I was at Sketch Party, which is the drink and draw that Sean's been to too. This is years ago. And I with a brush pen, drew a skull on my friend's arm. And then the next morning she was like, yeah, I'm getting this tattooed. And I was like, is it good? I don't like, I was like drinking. It was like a 15
it's like
second
signed
tattoo.
Your name is real big. Like everyone's gonna know I did this thing.
Well, she got it. And then I did a Secret Walls art battle like the next day. And she showed up to that. And then somebody just goes like, oh, you got a Sean tattoo. So, pretty distinct and noticeable. And then I'm looking at it and I'm going like, I didn't finish the tongue because I didn't know it was going to be a tattoo. It just like the skull was like, had a tongue coming out screaming and it just stopped suddenly. And I'm like, it's probably fine. And then my friend walks up and he just goes, are you going to get that tongue finished?
Oh. Oh my God.
Became my favorite of the tattoos that people have on me because it was, it's loose and specific. And almost all the other tattoos people have are like, they go online and like take one of my pieces and get it without asking me, and it's like a little stiffer.
Yeah.
Do you have a policy about tattoos? I know sometimes people are like, I have a little certificate and you just pay me a little bit and you can get it tattooed. Or are you just like asking me for permission?
Just ask me for permission. I usually say yes. I find it emotionally gratifying when people have cool tattoos of my stuff.
I agree. I think it's just like so nice that somebody even wants like the art. I did start telling people that they can donate. I give people a link now that I'm like, if you want to drop like $5 or whatever, like just to show you appreciate the art or something. But I don't know if you have anything like that set up.
I don't. I mean, I've had people who want custom things, and obviously I'm not going to do that for free.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely nice to support an artist. Like technically you are supposed to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
But if people want to kick me some money, I definitely appreciate it. But if it's a block, I don't know. Just get covered in my art. That's what I came on this podcast to tell everyone.
I mean, it's sort of like people turning into a walking little art billboard, like a portfolio,
mm-hmm,
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The only problem is it's not a portfolio that you can update. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. But if you do color, don't only get my red splatter on it. I do like a lot of paint splatter on my art. And one person did black and white skull with only the red paint splatter. And I think it looks like they have a rash.
Colors are hard. Yeah. I think it's like, I mean, I feel like, I don't know how much you guys know of like inks and everything. I have a couple of friends who do tattoos, and there was like a whole thing going on recently with inks that like the US decided to ban, but they're okay in Europe and all of that. But I don't know where that's at now.
Was it about being toxic or something?
Yeah, I think it was something like the FDA ruled that the chemicals weren't correct or whatever. But it's kind of, I don't know, but like a lot of people were kind of like a little bit, there was like a lot of irony in this because Europe is usually much more conscious of toxic chemicals than the US. So it almost felt like there was like a business
opposite day
thing going on here where like, I don't know, maybe an American ink brand was trying to just kind of get a monopoly of the color ink market or something, and they hid behind the FDA or I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
You can surely put that stuff in our food if you want, just not tattoos.
The ink Illuminati had to shut it down.
Ink luminous.
Oh, I was also gonna say, but if you're looking to get your favorite rash memorialized, Sean Keaton's red splatter tattoo actually is a really good way to tattoo your favorite rash onto you.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, you're like, oh my god, like Lenny Kravitz touched my arm and I broke out in a rash.
Yeah.
Like I gotta memorialize this.
Yeah, Elton John gave me a ringworm.
What?
Yeah. Miley Cyrus gave me pink eye, and so I'm getting my eye colored in.
Why are all the celebrities disgusting? What is going on?
Have you ever seen a celebrity performing at a music show? They're so sweaty, dude.
Yeah, but it's just sweat. It doesn't mean they have ringworm.
True. Okay, you're
like
right.
So...
I do think people on tour get pretty nasty. There was one time there was this band that came through and they crashed on my couch and they gave my house fleas. So if Miley Cyrus is anything like that, then stay away.
Fleas is so crazy I don't know, because I thought fleas was not like a human parasite, so it's just very funny. But
they don't hang out on you very much. But they jump on and they bite you, like right now I am getting like all the time I can feel something on my legs and it's like it's not even there because we found 2 fleas on my cat this week and we put like flea medicine on them. But I'm just nonstop. I'm like is that like a tingle on my leg? Is there something on my leg? And then I go check and then it's nothing. But yeah, I've
been there. Yeah.
Animals, What's your flea experience?
I mean, I had a dog that would get fleas fairly often, and now I have a cat that I adopted from my backyard. She just like showed up, and so she goes in and out because I figure she started outside, and I don't really want to like imprison her. So she'll bring in some fleas from outside.
Yeah,
for sure.
Backyard, a main place for fleas for sure. Like that's where I would direct someone.
Well, mine specifically.
That's where I would direct an animal to go if they needed to get fleas immediately.
I get more fleas shipped in, so there's a lot of them.
I import my fleas. I get European fleas, the very same ones that would transmit the bubonic plague.
Oh my god!
I mean, we don't get it anymore. We have immunity, but
I will say, however, we don't have immunity against the plague. I sorry that I know this fact.
Maybe you don't, but
rodents will give it to you. Do not touch a squirrel or a rat because they could be carrying the plague.
I opened my front door 3 nights ago, and there was just a possum at my front door looking right at me, like he was like showed up for dinner.
And he spat plague up all over me, and I was like, oh my frigging, I just took a shower.
Yeah. I mean, it's my fault for making out with the possum, but
but their mouth is so big.
Okay.
It's a lot of mouth to look at.
That's what I look for in a makeout partner is how big is their mouth.
Makeout simulator game idea, and it's different type of mouth and animals. Yes or no?
I mean, they probably have that in Japan because they had a concho simulator, which was basically they had the control. It's an arcade game. The control was a butt, and you just jammed your finger into it as hard as you can to get points.
Oh
no.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of furry games out there. I'm sure. I mean, that's kind of animal makeout simulator, isn't it?
Was that making out with a possum? That's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah, I was drawing. I was going to draw you making out with a possum.
I like that I've grown a beard, but we're all just, and I did it too, drawing me with my old chops because they're so
No, I can't.
I ruined my cartoonness. I was like such a clear cartoon character, and now I just look like a human being.
Well, listen, I was trying to draw you to indicate that you were younger in those old ones, but you are right. I do want to be. Isn't that okay? Can we talk about that real quick? The idea that when you modify how you look as a cartoonist, you're modifying your character design, especially if you draw yourself. Like I draw myself all the time, and I'm like, oh, this character design is a little harder to draw when I like get a haircut or whatever.
I am happier with the beard day to day. Drawing myself is way worse without it, without the stupid chops. The dumb facial hair was great for being a cartoon character.
For design.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I feel like it's so funny because this is such a real question because I feel like in animation sometimes you have people who will like pick like a certain hair color and then they have to stick to it their entire life because that's like part of their like design, you know? And I think that's like pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I got roped into the weird sideburns for 15 years or something.
Oh,
It was hard to
roped
it was hard to
in.
kick.
What do you mean? Like someone was like, "I dare you," and then you. What do you mean? You
No,
got
I just
roped
did.
in?
I did it, and then I tried to get out, and I couldn't. During the pandemic, I
Is
shaved
this
them off, and
quicksand? What?
I looked in the mirror, and I was like, "You just look like a random dude."
I think.
You had an
that,
identity crisis.
Yeah.
Full on.
I think a lot of self-acceptance is realizing that we are all just a random dude. And that's how you deflate the ego, is when you realize like we are just a random dude.
That's so true. As we were talking, I was looking at some of the questions that we got, and I think I want to start peppering in a couple questions because we got a lot. And our patron Flanerd, they asked, "What do you think about the future of video games and any input on the international culture of video games?" This is quite broad. However, there are constant discussions of climate impact and energy consumption. Concerning the industry, do you have any input or thought on this? It's pretty interesting.
Well, in terms of climate impact,
Video games aren't going to work real well if we're all underwater, is the problem. And if you get the games wet, no, I'm just kidding. Go.
you just put them in a bubble, and then you put your arms in the bubble, and then you play.
I have reduced this to bits. I'm sorry. Do your serious answer. My bad.
I mean, I expect, so the one place that like chat GPT style AI stuff like makes the most sense to me is like NPC characters talking to you in video games, where like basically anybody you could spool up a conversation with them. I expect also that there'll be things with like, like you want to go off into the forest, and that's not really what the game thought you should do, but it's just going to spool up infinite forest for you to run around and stuff. That kind of stuff, at least now, is pretty processor intensive. So I guess that will be bad for the environment. Yeah, I mean, everybody's freaking out about AI across all the industries right now. So that's I think where everybody's kind of keeping an eye, although it seems like a lot of stuff's not panning out the way the tech companies told us it would. So I think it's kind of falling apart on its own weight a little bit. But in terms of international, I mean, I got asked several years ago to come to either Hamburg or Madrid to help spool up game studios there, because they don't have as much reps in those countries making games. Mm-hmm. So I imagine that there will be more countries will figure out how to really build up industries. But yeah, I don't have a great answer for that question because I haven't really thought about the international.
I'd like to ask you a tangent question that's it's relative to that, but have you seen that version of Doom where an AI is creating Doom without any stored Doom memory or anything? It's just been fed all over Doom.
I have seen that.
What's your opinion on that? I'll just leave it as that.
My opinion on it. I mean, it's a weird thing that can exist.
Well, is it like a thing that people are going to start trying to? I don't know. Like, is it anything that anybody's talking about, or are you like, okay, that's just like a gimmick, like whatever?
It is a gimmick right now. I haven't seen a lot of stuff that breaks free of gimmicks, but it's early days. I actually thought it was going to like go really nuts and like just kind of get exponentially more powerful, and like we were just gonna like become some kind of Borg situation, and but it seems like all the progress kind of stalled out. So honestly, I'm just not worrying about it is what I'm doing. And
I think it's such a refreshing take on it. I am in so many groups where everybody's really like afraid and worried about AI. And while I agree that there should be a sentiment of being precautious, I guess, or like at least being more on the side of like, okay, let's just not jump into this. I also agree that like we should just kind of like wait and see a little bit. I think there is a lot of promise that is for shareholders and people trying to like.
It's like salesmen trying to.
Yes, it feels very snake oil right now.
Yeah. And if you're anxious about it, I'm not saying you shouldn't be. I'm not saying that anybody's wrong to be concerned about
just
it.
kidding.
I just don't see how panicking about it's going to help it not take people's jobs, and also help it, like, it's just not going to help me. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to try to deal with it as things happen and react to as best I can.
I'm going to burn my house down, and on the insurance claim, I'm going to write AI, and we'll see. Then we'll see what AI has to say about. Then we'll show it.
Did you guys see though? Okay, this is me going into like what bigger gossip or whatever. But did you guys see that Warner Brothers is suing Elon Musk because they could prove that they used AI to mimic some of what had been done in a Warner Brother movie, I forget which one, to like design some of their Teslas? I don't know. I thought that was insane. I don't even know if it's real, but I'm like, wow, just big companies fighting each other is always a delight.
I always support suing Elon Musk in any form. So.
What I had seen is that when designing Elon Musk, they had referenced the film library of Porky Pig, and every once in a while you can really tell when he's like, no, I'm just kidding about all that.
Porky deserves better.
No, you're right. I'm just joking. About everything, Elon Musk rules. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I'm not joking about that other stuff. No, he sucks. Just for everyone in the comments, he straight up sucks. So there's that. That is cool that he's getting sued. Hell yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. On YouTube, Chanmates asks, what are some good online colleges for animation? Preferably ones that have a BA or BFA degree. I'm trying to become a storyboarder. So I don't know if you have input.
Honestly, I would not worry about BFA or BA degree. I mean, the first game studio I worked at didn't even look at my resume. They just looked at my portfolio.
I've also never had a studio ask where I went to school or if I went.
Yeah, nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit. They just want to see your real.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Schoolism has some good classes. I think they got some storyboard stuff. I would look into that. But what I think college was good for was forced deadlines and meeting people that later became colleagues of mine. That's about it. And you can do the same thing by moving to a city that has the thing you want to do in it and hanging out with people and making projects yourself and turning them into pieces for demo reels.
Or sneaking into the lectures and telling people that you're a student.
That's not a bad idea.
And you can just hang out with the people. And they're like, wow, are you finished all your homework already? You hang out a lot. And you're like, yeah. I'm here, but I finished it during lunchtime.
Sean is joking, but shout out
It's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea because shout out to Creative Block, the episode on Ego Plum. He did something kind of similar, and I think it's a great way to hack the system. Episode 67, definitely check out Ego Plum's episode. You can know how to hack colleges.
I was listening to there's this guy who programs like robots and stuff named Michael Reeves who has a YouTube channel, and his whole thing, I mean, he has like a robotics YouTube channel where he makes goofy robots, but his whole thing is like he just snuck into classes and like went online and found all of the syllabi and like all the lessons and just did it for free. And you would just sit in the lectures and no one ever people didn't find out.
They don't take roll call in college. You can just, or they do, but they don't ask you if like you're not there. They only ask if you are there. So
right.
Hudson B on YouTube is asking, what is your favorite thing to draw?
Skeleton. It's probably obvious.
Dude, skeletons rule, man. I love skeletons. Were you ever scared that your skeleton would find out that it can be free and rip its way out of you? Like that you're like, shh, keep it down. Don't tell anybody. Yeah.
I have a drawing of myself, of beheading myself, so that the two skeletons that live inside of me can make out freely without my head in
Hold
my
on.
way.
Wait, how is
Hold
there
on.
two skeletons? How can you have two?
He's
How do
he's
you have
skeleton.
two?
He's bodying for two.
He's
If you draw skeletons long enough, your body builds a second one.
So do you guys think about your skeletons? Like, is that a
I think
thought
about
that
it all the
Oh,
all
yeah.
the time. I'm like,
Oh,
man,
yeah.
my skeleton's chilling right now. It's sitting pretty.
that's that is so funny. I never think about my skeleton. I never.
You don't ever look at your body and like see the bones sticking out of your skin and be like, yeah, that's a skeleton. That's crazy.
I will say though, the closest thing I can think of that's similar to thinking about my skeleton is that like somehow my wrists are they're extremely tiny. There's no meat on my wrists at all, and it's the only part of my body when I like look at it for too long, I'm like, yeah, that's a skeleton. I know, but it's just like that part where I'm like, oh, that's weird. On Newgrounds, Bellyaves Fox is asking, what should artists and animators be aware of when looking to branch into video game development?
Skeletons in the crypt.
Skeleton in the closet.
No.
I don't actually even think I think it's probably true of anything you're trying to do, but you're trying to solve somebody's problem. And if they're hiring you, the problem has probably already gotten to a point that they're a little panicked about it. And so it's really just about showing that you're going to make everybody's lives like easier and that you can do the thing, the thing that happens to me at the time. So there's two components to that. One is try to tell your work to the studio, the work in your reel or portfolio or whatever is appropriate for your medium, to the studio you're applying to, so that it's a very clear, I can see how this person can help. I just this morning went through like 30 animation reels from different people and basically gave them like a quality of animation score, but also a style fit score. Just because that reduces a major risk if I know that they're going to be able to work well within that style. It's not if there was someone who was like stylistically on point but bad at animating, and someone who's great at animating but did other stuff, I would go with the great animator. But
what if it's somebody if somebody whose reel has a lot of different styles in it, like they show that they
just need to see one that is
similar,
proves you can do that I can do.
Cool. How would you define the style that you do? Like if you were to kind of like give
my style personally,
or like the style for the studio
for.
When you're hiring and you're looking at these portfolios, what are keywords that you could kind of associate with the style?
In terms of like the animation, it's like very fluid frame by frame animation. It's not it's not limited at all. It's it's really about like really fluid movement and keeping proportions really solid. But then like it's kind of a mix of like, it's a weird mix of like anime, like crafty horror, and like 1920s cartoons.
That's great. No, I love that. I think that's very clear. I think it makes it's just already so specific, and it's great to hear. And so
the crazy thing though is a lot of the people that looking through their thing, they're like an animator, but what they have is like an Instagram with no animation on it and no link to a reel. And I just rejected all of those people off the bat because I don't have time to.
You have to look for it.
Chase them down. Yeah. So it's crazy to me. So don't do that. Make it easy for the person. Send them the stuff in.
Yeah.
And like
it's good advice.
Updated on your website or whatever, and have a link off your social media to your thing if you're trying to get work. Like it should just be wherever I end up, it should be easy to find your work.
Do you get a lot of these like applications where like it's like a maze and you don't know where to look for things? Is that common?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you never view it as like, oh, I'm doing resumes on hard mode. It's time for the boss time level. And you're like looking through like 5 different sites for this person's email, and you gotta like hack into the code of the site, and you're getting thrills from having to track it down.
It suggests that that's how working with them across the board is going to be.
Like, do you want to hire someone who is hard mode, who's on extreme difficulty?
It's like when you have like an assignment to give them, you just have to check like every single room in the building. You have to try like the 3 different emails they have. Maybe they're on Discord, maybe they're on Instagram DMs. You don't know. It's like impossible to give them a no.
Yeah. I like the idea of hiring Elden Ring boss. like you're like trying to give them an assignment and they kill you in one hit,
But what if he's an extremely talented animator? It's the Elden Ring boss, but like, I don't know anyway.
No, you're right.
You're gonna answer it though.
Out.
Yeah, you're gonna answer it though. Like, what if it's like an actual superstar animator, but they're like you can only reach them through like snail mail?
Yeah, have you ever found someone who is worth it? You know what I mean? Who is worth the like playing hard to get chase?
I mean, there's definitely, to a degree. I mean, there's definitely people where I will put in more to get them than I would normally because they're really good. I'm actually talking to an artist right now, a concept artist that is asking for is being a little difficult, and I'm
going to apply to work for you, and I'm going to make a geocaching scavenger hunt where you have to go in person to these different like places, and you find like you find like the first half of my site like on a slip, and the next clue.
Can the last clue be that it leads me to a Viewmaster, like and I have to like crank it on my face to see you're real?
Yeah, in the last clue, you dig up this barrel, and I'm in it, and I'm dead, and I've been waiting, and you took too long to find me, and I'm dead in there.
So now you're like guilt tripping him.
I had 10 days of air. Yeah. And I was like, and it says like, haha, too slow, you lose.
What?
We both lose. Pivot, V, pivot.
This is an insane bit. I'm like, I can't. I'm just gonna move on to the next question. I'm like,
it's like that Junji Ito barrel where I'm a swirl.
Yeah. We got lost in the Mind Palace. KG on Instagram is asking, how would you describe the work of a gallery artist? How is the whole process behind that like? So we talked about it a little bit before, and you've described kind of how you got the gig and how you keep getting the gigs. But I'm guessing now, let's say that you just got a new gig and you're prepping for a new show. What is that going to be? What is that going to look like for you?
It depends on what it is your paintings do. For me, I try to like stay really emotionally open to myself and try to like my paintings are kind of a way I like process feelings I have, and so I do a ton of sketches, and at some point I'll hit something where I feel like it's telling me something about myself that I didn't know about myself, at which point I assume other people will relate to that as well, and then that's when I sort of know I have something I want to work on. And then I never make a painting if I can bear the idea of not making it. So it has to become so viscerally, emotionally important to me that to not finish it would upset me a great deal. Mm-hmm. So there's so much freedom in doing stuff for galleries that it really is like just like a personal, I just make what I think is great, and I don't have to worry about it the same way I do with video games in terms of like exactly how it's gonna go over. But for like group shows, a lot of times there'll be like a theme, and so what I do then is I just like draw around that theme until I either hit something that does the thing where I can't bear not to make it, or I don't hit that, and then I just turn the show down because I don't want to be in a show just to be in a show if I don't like love the thing I'm gonna make. Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to get into galleries, like the thing to do is to like show up to all of their shows, like only pick a couple galleries that you really like and go to all their openings just to hang out and be there. Gallery owners actually really care about that. Yep. And if you're not really part of their community, they're much less likely to want to work with you. And like supposedly, like if you love that gallery, then like you would want to be there. So it's kind of weird if you don't show up if you live in the city. And then eventually you befriend the gallery owners, you befriend the artists that show there, but you don't want to be pushy and like go in immediately with like, oh, here's all my paintings and please put me in your thing or whatever. Like that'll sort of naturally come out over time if they just start to get to know you and know you're an artist and stuff. So go to things, be helpful, make cool work. You can show your work to galleries if it feels like it's the right thing to do. It, you know, like it doesn't feel like you're forcing it. But yeah, I think just like making connections with the places you want to show is the main thing to do.
That's a great way of like putting it. I think when like that is a lot of like relationship building, because it's true. Like, yeah, why would you want to put your work up in the place that you never go to?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That it has a lot in common with getting shows as a band too. If you have a new band, go to shows, talk to the promoter, talk to the bands, like making friends with people is a powerful life hack.
Yeah.
Now let's pretend. So now we've talked about like talking to the gallery and getting your work exhibited. But now let's say you have your solo show and now you have to create all the work. Or do you have the work already made?
No, so I just did a solo show and made like the whole show in basically 1 month.
What? Which was crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. How many pieces?
13. Although four were pre-existing, so 9 new ones.
That's crazy. How do you go about it? Are you just kind of like waiting for the inspiration to strike, or you're like, okay, I gotta get one piece done like every this amount of days, or like what's your process to get to that finish line and go to the gallery with all the work and feeling like you did it?
Yeah, I mean, it was an insane, like, just if I wasn't sleeping, I was working, but it's a lot of like just like I don't wait for inspiration to come. Like if I don't know what to draw, which I'm doing right now, I just like start moving my hand and let the because you will, at least for me, I will eventually get bored of drawing crappy little drawings and draw something good. But it's if I just sit there, that will never happen. So I think moving your hand makes your brain move. So I just try to like just sketch until something happens that I want to make. Yeah, like now in this drawing, a new bearded Sean is making out with old mutton chop Sean. So
we have to specify which Sean.
I love that there's a theme of making out in this episode. This is the love episode.
Lust. It's the lust episode.
Lust episode.
We don't know if these skellies are calling each other back. We don't know if we're getting a second date out of these skulls.
Artsy Fartsy Fun Times is asking, love the style. I'm curious if having such a stylized approach to art has had any repercussion with the gallery scene, which you've had to overcome. A lot of galleries around me, deep south, are still pretty traditional in what they showcase, and it's refreshing to see someone outside of the oil-painted still life rocking the scene.
I think that is a very regional thing. And LA being the like main home of animation makes it a lot more of a thing here to have cartoony, weird, stylized stuff. So I haven't had it. I mean, it does determine where I can show to some degree.
Yeah.
You know, probably not going to show at the Getty or whatever, but it hasn't been an issue. And so my advice to that, honestly, is like, I know it's like a privileged thing to say to like move because it's hard for some people financially, but like you should go to the city that does the stuff that you want to do if you possibly can, because it becomes just infinitely more doable, and you end up hanging out with people that are doing the kind of things you do. It also just psychologically makes it feel like a doable, real thing for you. And so yeah, in LA that's not a problem.
Yeah, I was also gonna say, I feel like there's different cities that don't have to be LA that would probably be open to that kind of art scene, but it's definitely got to be like a city that has a pretty active art scene.
Yeah, it's got to
So
be big enough that like they run out of normal oil paintings to be interested in and want to do something weird on top of it or something, I think. Yeah, I mean, you could probably get away with it in New York a little bit.
yeah, I was gonna say because
Even San Francisco though, like it definitely existed. Like High Fructose started up there, which is a magazine I love that does that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
there's definitely some stuff going on out there, but it was not the same as coming down to LA. Like coming down to LA, the city just like opened up its arms. It felt like I was like
That's
it was
awesome.
such a sudden shift. Yeah.
Can we get a few, like if someone is visiting LA and wants to see some LA galleries, do you have any just off the rip that you might be able to shout out?
Yeah, go to Thinkspace, go to Giant Robot, the GR2 gallery. If you like pop culture reference stuff, you can go to Gallery 1988. Gallery Nucleus has good stuff if you're into like animation stuff or sort of anime stuff. Let's see. I think that's KP Projects, that's really good stuff. A friend of mine owns that gallery. Yeah, I'm gonna forget some specific ones and then feel guilty, but I think that's a good list to start.
And shout out to Cube Pop Gallery in Little Tokyo. We had Chris Mitchell on the podcast. Check out episode 61, who's an animator, art director, and also owns a gallery.
Yeah, I've also liked The Hive.
I've shown there. Yeah.
Another gallery space that does have a little bit more, it's slightly more like fine art, but they do have weird stuff, is Wackos.
Oh, Lelouch. Yeah. Lelouch is amazing. That should have been on the list.
I feel like fine arts can get like punk weird and fun and weird and kind of cartoony. Like Basquiat is kind of like an example of like how that's very like close to street art and
absolutely
just kind of like fun, even though the themes are very like social and like dark. The art looks very.
Yeah, did you see his Ferris wheel?
I did not see the Ferris wheel. Okay. I remember, I think I saw his work with, what's the name of this artist who does like the little like colorful like guys that are like kind of like moving? Keith Haring, yeah. I remember seeing a show. It was the two of them together. It was like Keith Haring and Basquiat. I think they were like contemporaries. So like
they were friends. They
were friends. Yeah. Let's see. Ajor whatever asks, I noticed that you went to RIT. How did that impact your style and overall path studying art at a predominantly tech school?
Yeah, so I was in the film and animation department there. It was a pretty the main reason I went there is that I applied to a bunch of schools and got into them all and then went to each one, and it was the only one where you owned your own films and animations that you made out of all of them. All the other ones, the schools own them, and that just the punk rock part of me couldn't handle it.
That's so weird.
That is so weird. Like
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah,
I lucked out, I guess.
I was looking on the East Coast. That's where I was living in, so it might be a different thing out there.
Wow. Yeah, because then you could never have put it on Nickelodeon if the school owned it. What?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a lot of my decision there, but it kind of made like a weird little like close-knit group of animators basically, because I lived in the art dorm there and sort of just hung out with all the other artists because it was sort of like a weird like us against all the
against the techies.
Yeah, the departments that make money. But also like I ended up becoming a little bit more. I have a lot more ability to mess around in an engine and stuff than most artists, which has helped me as an art director. So I can do more of the technical stuff and explain to artists the technical requirements of things, I think, better than most people. So I think that's also was part of that, part of going to a place like that.
Did it mean that you were able to talk to some of the tech people without getting beat up?
Oh, nobody was beating. Tech people weren't beating anybody up back then.
Oh, because you had mutton chops and they didn't want to start.
I had a mohawk, Liberty Spike mohawk.
Then they really weren't starting a fight with you.
That's so funny.
But also like the tech nerds as like bullies, I feel like is like a recent phenomenon. Like
I agree. I feel like that would be just like probably ever since, what's the name of that show? Silicon Valley. Ever since that came out. That's such a funny show. I feel that kind of was the era where it's like, oh, okay, tech has really changed. The
I miss the way old tech used to be.
way old tech used to be. Oh my god, that's so funny. A spatial raptor asked, "What's up with the skeleton obsession?"
I have
Someone get this
two.
guy checked out.
I have two answers. One is just that they're cool, and then I have my fine art answer, which is
Death.
I'm like trying to draw every human all at once, and just trying to like. I feel like we've like getting more and more sort of fragmented as a society, and really focused on how we're different from each other, and where we don't align with each other.
Are you
Really
trying to say
polarized.
skulls are the great equalizer and
They
skulls are
are.
what
You
make...
tear off somebody's face and they all look pretty much the same. That's what I'm saying.
Are you saying skulls to end all racism?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that what you're trying to... I was like waiting this answer out, and I'm like, no way is he about to...
I do not mean, I'm not talking specifically about race. I'm just talking about generalized. Honestly, I just mean like emotionally, we're all more the same than we're different.
Sure.
And so trying to remove the specificity of an individual character and get to the like character that's under all of us is basically what I'm trying to do.
I like that.
I do not think I have a plan to end racism.
No. I was like, I'm waiting for this answer. What is he gonna say? No, it's perfect.
That's Oh man. Yeah, well that's the episode. It's all about loving each other and making out and
skulls.
And skulls. We're more
and making
like
out with skulls.
Making out with skulls.
Skulls making out, trying to make out with skulls, but they like won't fuck with me.
And then yeah, we like kind of went through all the questions, but there's like a couple of things. Yeah, I just kind of I wanted to kind of talk about your past as a punk, I guess, or like what like your how is
Has
that
it influenced your art?
Yeah.
As being a punk
Has punk culture influenced your...
I mean, it's influenced me being an artist at all. I mean, I grew up in initially in housing projects and grew up really, really poor. And like in general in the world, I think everyone tells you not to be an artist. It's like a bad financial idea. But like when you're poor, like people really tell you not to do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there was just partly a like, fuck you, I'm going to do whatever I want that came out of it. And also just I started like in elementary school, I was like making my own comics and zines and video games and stuff. And then just kept doing that forever. So the like, DIY, like you just make a thing and you don't ask for permission and you just put it out yourself, like was a huge part of me doing any of this stuff. But also I'm just gonna make the paintings that I like, and them not selling is not the first concern.
Mm-hmm.
Which also weirdly I think helps him sell, which is a good punk rock hack.
Mm-hmm.
You can still secretly be a capitalist, you just pretend you're not. But
how'd you deal with that thought?
But yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly just the like, I'm gonna make what I want and live my life how I want, and not ask for permission, I think, which was the most important bit.
I think that's great. I feel like I think that's something I want to put out there a lot more, like the not asking for permission, doing the things that you like. I feel like sometimes, especially for people who've worked in animation for a while, and we get stuck into the like, I gotta pitch, I gotta have somebody buying my idea, somebody like, like that believes in me, so like the thing can happen. And it's like you might actually not need that. You can do a lot of things by yourself.
And the like if this just resonates with anybody, it's a success thing that I talked about earlier. That I kind of just got that from Fugazi, from like their work ethic and mindset. So
yeah, I would say like don't ask for permission unless you are a muscular woman. Then I feel like it actually is really good if you do ask for permission.
If you're gonna try to kiss a skeleton, you should ask for permission first.
That's true.
Would your feelings get hurt if a skeleton turned you down for a make out sesh?
Depends on the skeleton.
Oh my god. That is so cool though, that like I feel like that's a path that a lot of people aspire to, like being able to not only like having been an animator, like art directing and then like having your own shows, that's just, we like to ask our guests how they deal with creative block, what does it feel like for you, and how you deal with it. So any words of wisdom?
I mean, it's really just the like move your hand and make stuff and don't worry if it's good or bad. Just make garbage until something cool happens is the main thing. But I did have when I first started to become was first a professional artist, meaning it was like how I was paying rent and eating food. I did get like weirdly stressed out about it. Well, not weirdly, it's kind of normal, but got really anxious about it and thought like, oh, everything I do needs to be like a portfolio piece and stuff. And it like blocked me up completely. And I kind of stopped making art outside of my job for a while. So I ended up just making a sketchbook that I promised myself nobody would ever see, no matter if I did like the best drawing I've ever done, I would still not show anybody and I wouldn't post it online and it would just be like a secret thing.
It says like I'm the Zodiac killer in there. Like, yeah, that's all my secrets.
And I drew in there for like a full year every night after work. And that's honestly like the main sketchbook where my style came together and everything. So sometimes it's just a matter of like pulling the pressure off. And also part of pulling the pressure off sometimes is removing the chance for success.
Yeah.
I used to also like do my sketches on like lined paper with Sharpie so that like they couldn't be good, so that it would just be idea generation as opposed to trying to like come up with an idea and make it look good at the same time. Like those are different tasks and they cannibalize each other.
Yeah.
So you want to like split up. Like right now I'm just trying to think of cool shit and like, you know, draw around some cool shit. And then like later on you can like redo that in a way that's good and fit for people to see.
It's so funny how there's similar techniques for writing also, where you're just trying to like, you're not trying to worry about how pretty your language is. You're not, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I got that from Shitty First Draft, which I think is maybe an Anne Lamont writing tip.
That is so cool. I like that you made that promise with yourself to never like post online any of these drawings. Has it ever been difficult? Like, have you ever seen like a drawing that you're like, damn, that's a good drawing, and then you were like, I can't post it though?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I actually recently had someone like looking at my sketchbooks and was like, "Can I look at these sketchbooks?" And I was like, "Hold on, I have to check." And I had to check, like, is it that one or not?
Whoa! It really is like a blood oath.
Yeah. Because if I don't think I don't know if I'll need that again, but I need to be able to trust myself so that if I ever have to make a promise like that again, that I know it's real, like deep down. Yeah.
That's so cool. I just like that this is an answer that has a very deep emotional component to it, like the trust in yourself. I think that's really cool. And well, everyone, this is another one of these episodes where I don't have a good way about going into the end.
The end of this podcast is also cool, just like a skull. What about that?
That was smooth, like that, cool, like the shape of a skull.
Yeah, it's the end of a life, just like a skull is. It's the end of this podcast is. You're currently experiencing this podcast's skull. And
that's the end of this creative block. Sean, thanks for being our guest and sharing your story.
You're welcome. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Swiping compliments. Yeah, thank you so much. You've been awesome. Is there anything that you want to promote?
Yeah, if you're in LA, go to my Thinkspace show. It's up right now. Gallery at the Thinkspace Gallery. Yeah, got a solo show. Go check it out.
Go check it out. And also, I just want to thank our listeners. Follow us on social media at CRTV Block, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to our editor, Clemens, for editing the podcast, Marco for helping us produce the show, and Ibuka for creating the short clips we've been putting out.
If you love our show, you can support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews and access to our Discord community. And we also do little hangouts there. Another great way you can support the show is by liking, subscribing, sharing our interviews. Please comment as well. Tell us what you think about Skibbity Toilet.
Yeah. Pretty much go on any of our platforms and just close your eyes and click wildly and just type and anything that comes up. If you hit subscribe, hit the bell, accidentally type whatever in the comments. We appreciate all of it. indiscriminately.
Click the link in the description of this episode to follow Sean on all social media and find our Patreon. I've been your host, V.
And I was other Sean. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.